Imagine a single Wall Street giant trying to buy up almost every XRP token that is out there. It sounds pretty crazy, right? But it's a wild scenario that might actually force XRP's price to skyrocket just to keep up. Now, I know it feels like something out of a crypto thriller, but this idea has been making the rounds lately, and as an XRP holder myself, I couldn't ignore it any longer. So let's back up for just a second. What's actually happening right now? In the past couple of weeks, XRP hit the big leagues, right? We got our very own first spot XRP exchange traded funds, ETFs, right? Now these are funds that actually buy and hold XRP on behalf of investors. And they didn't just quietly launch, they blasted onto the scene. Right, the very first one launched about 2 weeks ago by Canary Capital. The ticker was XRPC. It pulled in roughly $245 million on its first day. I mean, just think about that, day one, right? Nearly $250 million poured into XRP through a single fund. Now, over the about 4 days or so, that grew to about $292 million invested, which at XRP's price works out to be roughly 138 million XRP tokens, scooped up by that fund in under a week. Now, that was a record-breaking debut for any ETF in 2025, by the way, out of hundreds of new ETFs launched this year. Talk about coming in with a bang. Now, when I saw that news, part of me was expecting to kind of see XRP's price shoot straight up, right? I mean, an ETF is buying millions of XRP. Shouldn't that push the price higher? Well, surprisingly, it didn't, did it? At least not immediately. In fact, right after the first ETF launched, the whole entire crypto market took a hit, a bit of a slump, if you will. Bitcoin took a dive to the mid-90s at the time, range, all the way down to the 80k range, dragging, well, everything down with it, including XRP. XRP actually dipped below $2, even though it was just days earlier, it was riding high at $2.10 or more. It was a bit anticlimactic. Huge news, record ETF launch, but the price slipped because of a broader market pullback. Now, if you were on our Discord at the time, you knew that people were scratching their heads about this one. By the way, if you haven't already, feel free to join the free educational Discord. The link is in the description down below. It's a great place to chat about all of these developments with a community of crypto enthusiasts. But here is the thing. Just because the price didn't pop instantly doesn't mean that these ETFs are not a big deal. In fact, the demand is clearly there and clearly growing. Right after Canary's success, other big players have rushed in. Bitwise launched their own XRP ETF just a few days ago. On its first day, despite that overall market lull, Bitwise's fund actually racked in about an impressive $22 million in trading volume within hours and over $100 million in inflows by day's end. Even Ripple's CEO Brad Garlinghouse chimed in on X to congratulate them, joking that the pre-Thanksgiving XRP ETF turkey trot, right, had to begun, right? Now, just picture a bunch of Wall Street funds racing to grab XRP. It's like Black Friday, but for crypto, and he's not wrong. We've got a real race now. Multiple funds are in line to launch. Templeton and Grayscale, two huge names, are reportedly launching their spot XRP ETFs today. Yes, November 24th. As I speak, those might actually be live, to be fair, by the time this video goes out, even adding more buying pressure to the market. There's also talks of others like 21 Shares and CoinShares gearing up with their own products soon. So even a smaller one called XRP by Rex Shares quietly debuted and gathered something around $150 million real quick. Now, in other words, the cavalry isn't just coming, it's already here, and more are on their way. Now, if you are holding XRP, and I'm guessing you are, like me, then all this sounds pretty bullish long term, doesn't it? More funds buying XRP usually means a lot more demand. But it also got me thinking, and apparently I'm not alone in this, what happens if all of these funds start accumulating all at the same time? We've got roughly 60 billion XRP that's in circulating supply, right? That's a lot. But Is it a lot when Wall Street's appetite is growing? Well, one crypto analyst, a game designer named Chad, has been super vocal just about this. He basically pointed out and says if a dozen XRP ETFs each started trying to buy millions or even billions of XRP, we would seriously have a supply crunch on our hands, unless the price adjusts upwards. So, in his view, XRP's price might have to climb significantly to balance things out here. Otherwise, these funds could theoretically gobble up most of the available XRP within a single year, leaving everyday holders like us wondering where all the cheap XRP went. That line of thinking is pretty wild hypothetical scenario, isn't it? Someone asked, okay, what if BlackRock, the biggest asset manager of them all, jumped in with an XRP fund? Now, full disclosure, BlackRock and other giants like Fidelity and Van Eyck have said that there's no current plans to file for an XRP ETF, right? So this is just a what-if scenario, a thought experiment, if you will, but humor me here, because if it kind of actually really illustrates the point that I'm trying to make. Just imagine BlackRock aims for a fund with $100 billion in assets. Not saying that they will, but just picture that. How much XRP would that $100 billion actually represent at different prices? Now, the numbers might blow your mind here, because at XRP's recent prices, around $2.11, a $100 billion fund would need roughly something like 47.4 billion XRP. Yeah, 47 billion XRP with a B. That is almost 80% of all of the XRP in existence right now. So obviously, that is not realistic, is it? There's no way that BlackRock or anyone could buy 47 billion XRP at $2 without driving the price to the moon in the process. The market would go haywire just trying to fill an order of that magnitude. So, what's the solution? Well, a higher price. So if XRP were, let's say, $12 instead of $2, the same $100 billion would buy and be roughly 8.3 billion XRP. That's only about 13% of the supply, which is still pretty huge, but a lot more manageable than 80% of the supply. So if XRP were $25, $100 billion would be just 4 billion XRP, around 6 to 7% of the supply. And if, drum roll if you will, XRP reached somehow $220 down the line, a $100 billion fund would need only 454 million XRP. That would be less than 1% of the current supply. You see what's happening here, right? The higher the price goes, the fewer tokens a $100 billion fund, or if any other large amount of money, actually needs to buy. In other words, if massive institutional money comes into XRP, the price may need to rise accordingly so that the market can absorb that demand without breaking completely. It's kind of like if a giant whale jumps into a small pool. The water level has to rise to accommodate it, right? Now, before I go any further down this rabbit hole of crazy price scenarios, let me just drop a really quick reality check, because this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so with that disclaimer, important disclaimer I should say, out of the way, let's talk about what all of this means for us in practical terms then. Right, we've painted a picture where ETFs could create a supply crunch that forces prices significantly higher. Does that mean that XRP will automatically hit something crazy like $220? Well, not necessarily, and certainly not overnight. In reality, markets are way more complex than that. Yes, rising demand should lead to rising prices, but there are other factors at play too. The overall market sentiment, macroeconomic factors, and even how fast these funds actually accumulate XRP. Right? They're not going to buy everything all in one go. They're likely to average in over time to avoid spiking the prices themselves. Some pundits have pointed out that just launching ETFs won't magically teleport XRP to 3 or 4 digits. No, For example, I read one analysis saying that while ETFs add buying pressure, we shouldn't expect a $100 XRP or a $1,000 XRP unless there's also massive broader adoption and perhaps multiple different catalysts. And I do generally agree. Caution is pretty healthy. Now, I'm an excited kind of guy, as anyone is about the future here, but I also have to keep my expectations rather realistic. A lot of people in the XRP community have learned this the hard way years over, right? Big promises can take time to materialize. Remember when we were all waiting on that SEC case resolution, right? That took a good 2.5 years, but it eventually opened the floodgates for things like these ETFs. It's actually quite amazing when you think about it. 2 or so years ago, XRP was being delisted from major exchanges and maybe even thought it was doomed in the United States, right? Fast forward to today, not only is XRP legally in the clear, thanks to Ripple's courtroom victory, of course, but now Wall Street is literally trying to create products to give investors easier exposure to XRP. It's vindication for a lot of us who held on. But it's also a reminder that crypto is a long game. Okay, now let's zoom out just a bit and consider the parallel here. Bitcoin. Right now, there are about a dozen Bitcoin spot ETFs up and running. Together, they hold something like $117 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now, because Bitcoin's price is pretty high, hovering around the $92,000 recently, although it's struggling, I'm not going to lie, that $117 billion translates into roughly 1.3 million BTC, which is around about 6% of all of the Bitcoin that is out there. So if Bitcoin were still half of that price, let's say $46,000, which it was back in early 2024, well, those ETFs would, when first launching that is, that $117 billion would actually be about 2.6 million BTC. That would be over 12% of the supply. Now that would have been a much bigger chunk of the pie, right? But because Bitcoin's price increased as demand grew, those ETFs ended up holding a smaller slice of the total supply than they would have at lower prices. Eventually, Bitcoin's rising price helped prevent the ETFs from consuming too much of the available coins. Now I see a very similar dynamic potentially playing out with XRP. As these new funds accumulate, the act of accumulating might drive the price up, which in turn makes further accumulation less aggressive on the supply. It's kind of like a self-correcting mechanism of the market. So you might be thinking, what do we do with all this information? Well, personally, it makes me feel pretty optimistic about the direction that things are heading in. If big institutions want in on XRP, well, that's a positive sign for those of us who are already invested, right? But I also believe in being prepared and staying level-headed. Now, let me just share a little strategy of mine that helps. This might help you too, right? Because I always make sure that I have multiple different crypto exchange accounts set up and verified as a precaution. Why? It's because when markets get wild, let's say XRP goes to the moon, and there's some frenzy, well, individual exchanges, they actually can go down, get overloaded, or even temporarily halt withdrawals. Now, you do not want to be in a situation where you need to sell or move crypto and your one exchange is offline or frozen. Now, I treat it like having a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Now, for me, that means that I've signed up with, I've KYC'd on, and I've tested out a whole bunch of different crypto exchanges, whether it's Binance, Kraken, BitGet, Blowfin, LBank, or others. I've got options is my point. And yes, in case you are wondering, all of the exchanges that I use is listed on my website, and there's a link for that down in the description below. If you do actually spend the time to go over to the website using that link, you're going to find all of the exchanges that I do personally use. And each exchange has an affiliate link, which basically means if you do decide to sign up with those links on my website, it will actually help support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. I'm mentioning this because, well, I want to be really transparent with you guys, but I also want to spend a little bit of time here just to say, I want to say a big thank you to anyone who does go down to the description, goes over to our website and signs up on any of those exchange links, because it generally does help the channel out here massively. So for anyone who does that, I would like to say thank you. Now, speaking of which, I've actually partnered up with Kraken for a very special limited time offer that is pretty awesome for XRP fans. Basically, if you use my link that's currently in the description down below and you create a Kraken account and trade at least $100 worth of any crypto except for stablecoins, within 30 days of opening your account, Kraken will give you $25 worth of XRP for free. It's literally free XRP for just trying out an exchange. Now that offer, it won't be around forever, but it is a neat way to accumulate just a little bit more XRP. Plus, even beyond the bonus, you're accomplishing that strategy that I've mentioned, getting another exchange account set up and tested ahead of the next big market move. So consider it both a backup plan and a way to boost your stack. Now, of course, since this is a partner link, using it also actually gives me a little thank you bonus myself on this channel too. So it's a way of actually saying a big thank you for anyone who uses that. It's a win-win-win-win situation. You get an exchange, you get XRP, it helps support the channel here, and it helps Kraken grow their user base as well. So as you can see, it's a pretty decent offer. Anyway, for full details, the terms and conditions for that promotion, there's a link just in the description down below. And I do urge you guys to check out the fine print because not every jurisdiction around the world is going to be eligible for that bonus. So do check out those details in the fine print. Anyway, it's also worth noting that this particular promotion is brought to you by Kraken. It's not affiliated with YouTube or Cheeky Crypto in any way. Now, beyond the world of ETFs and exchanges, there is another rather interesting development that I want to briefly touch on here, something more on the techie side of crypto that I've personally gotten involved with. Now, if you've been following the channel, you know you've probably heard me mention Unity many times before. Now, this is a project that has caught my attention because it's not just about buying additional tokens and waiting for the moonshots. No, it's about actively participating in a network and earning rewards for doing so. Now, in simple terms, Unity Nodes is a new initiative by World Mobile and Minutes Network that basically turns your everyday smartphones into a part of a decentralized telecom infrastructure. So think of it like crypto mining, but instead of running power-hungry computers or a secure blockchain, you're actually just running an application on your Android phone or your Apple phone. And it actually helps test out the global telecoms networks. Now, you're helping make sure that phone calls and data connections are working properly across different carriers. And in return, you earn crypto rewards. Right? It's a pretty cool fusion of telecom and blockchain technology. Now, I was intrigued enough that I actually went ahead and bought a Unity Master Node NFT, which came with 200 licenses, meaning that I can potentially connect up to 200 phones as nodes to this system. Now, I'm not going crazy and deploying all 200 right away. That would be pretty crazy, right? Now I'm starting small, a small test, just 10 phones to see how it all works in practice. And if it goes well and the rewards are solid, I'm going to scale this up gradually. Now, one thing that I really like is that I can choose to be paid out in various different cryptocurrencies. Personally, I'm choosing to receive my rewards in a mix of different things, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, and of course XRP. Most recently, Unity has actually partnered up with Polkadot to offer DOT as a reward option, and they've also partnered up with Shiba Inu to offer SHIB tokens as a reward option too. So if you're into those, they are also options as well. Now, to me, this is just a great way to passively stack even more or accumulate even more crypto over time, right? Because hey, if I can passively get more XRP on top of other coins that I've got, then basically leveraging unused phones or a couple of cheap phones that I can get from Amazon, why not, right? It's kind of like staking or earning yield, but you're actually contributing to something more meaningful in the real world, at least to this innovative network, all at the same time. Now, just to be very clear here, Unity Nodes is not the focus of this video today, of course, so I won't go too deep into all the details. I'm just telling you, that's not me, I should say, telling you to go out and buy anything. As always, you need to do your own research. I'm going to put some links in the description down below to their light paper and the rewards calculator. So if you are curious, you can learn more about all the technicals and the potential earnings on their website. Now, for those who have seen my earlier videos, this concept won't be new to you, but I wanted to give you a quick update since I have officially jumped into this one on a smaller scale, and it's something different in the crypto space that I find pretty exciting because it shows how crypto can tie into real-world infrastructure in rewarding ways that regular people like us can use. All right, let's bring this back to XRP in the bigger picture. We have institutions gearing up to possibly buy unprecedented amounts of XRP through these ETFs. We've got the price, which as of today is hovering around the low $2 range, being tested by broader market forces, but with this undercurrent of demand that could actually build up over time. The way that I see this is that we might be setting the stage for a kind of supply and demand squeeze play. It literally won't happen overnight, of course, but right, no one is going to be waking up, at least in my opinion, to $220 tomorrow morning, right? Just because of an ETF launch. But as I say, over the next year or two, if more of these funds keep on launching and steadily accumulating, and if crypto as a whole swings back into a full bull market, well, XRP could see some significant moves. For us XRP holders, the key is to stay informed, to have a plan. Now, my plan, as I've mentioned, includes being ready on multiple exchanges, earning extra crypto on the side through things like Unity, and just staying engaged with the community for any early warning signs or opportunities. Now, I love to know what your plan is. Do you think that these ETFs will truly stain the supply and, drive the prices higher? Or do you think that it's overhyped and the impact will be more gradual? Maybe you're skeptical and think, I'll believe $220 when I see it. And these are all fair points of view. And honestly, I bounce between excitement and caution myself depending on the day. What I do know is that a few years ago, we could not have imagined Wall Street fighting to launch XRP products. Not like this. It really feels like the dawn of a new chapter for XRP. We're not just the so-called XRP army anymore. We might soon be joined by armies of financial advisors, hedge funds, and retirement accounts indirectly, all getting exposure to the same asset that we've been passionate about. Now, that kind of mainstream integration is exactly what many of us have been waiting for, because it could unlock value that just wasn't accessible when XRP was considered a risky, off-limits token in the United States. Now, as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a balanced takeaway. Yes, the math suggests that XRP's price might need to rise if the fund, at least these huge funds, they keep buying en masse. And quite exciting, right? But let's also remember, even if that does happen, markets can be volatile. There could be some spikes and some dips on the way up. Now, my approach is to stay level-headed here. I'm going to celebrate if and when XRP reaches new heights, but I won't get carried away to the point of ignoring all the risks. And I'm definitely going to be sharing every step of that journey with you guys, here and in our Discord. So, the question is, what do you think? Could we really see a scenario where XRP is forced to, let's say, $10, $50, or maybe even triple digits because of this institutional gold rush? Or do you think the market will find equilibrium before things get that extreme? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, or like I said, join our free Discord if you want to discuss it more in depth with all of us. It's an awesome community and we would love to have you there. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me on this journey today through the XRP ETF frenzy and beyond. If you found this story enlightening or thought-provoking, do me a favor and hit that like button and that subscribe button so you don't miss any future updates. Be sure to subscribe for more insights like this, and as always, I will catch you all in the next video.